Hello, and welcome to the next in a series of webinars from Getronics discussing the services we offer. My name is Duncan Smith, and I would firstly like to thank you very much for investing the time to join us today and for your interest in disaster recovery services from Getronics. My role is to work with you, understand your business challenges, and match the right solution to those requirements. I am responsible for our DR as a service offering and will be very happy to engage further after the call to discuss any element in further detail. So let's begin the session. In today's webinar, I will introduce the Disaster Recovery as a Service offering, highlight the benefits of our approach to disaster recovery services, and then take the opportunity to demonstrate the service in action. The Getronics Disaster Recovery proposition leads into the next steps, and we will conclude with a question and answer session. If you do have any questions as we go through, please use the chat facility in the webinar to submit them, and we will do our best to answer them at the end. Okay, so let's begin. So the first question I need to answer is, what is disaster recovery as a service from Getronics? Let me begin to address that by showing our short offering video.
For businesses of all shapes and sizes, being able to recover quickly from an unexpected disaster has always been a challenge. Companies can duplicate complete systems to achieve this, but this is an expensive and inflexible way of protecting critical business data. For many small businesses, the cost of a duplicate infrastructure was too high, and so it's been a case of hoping the worst just never happens. Now, Getronics has a better, more flexible and affordable solution to meet these needs. Offering disaster recovery as a service means your data is held in a secure virtual environment, hosted in certified data centers. There's no need to duplicate hardware, so setup costs are minimized. And with automated protection and replication, you can be assured that should disaster strike, your business will be back on its feet in no time. Plus, with Getronics' expertise in service continuity and management, we can work with you to provide effective disaster recovery that supports your business continuity plan. So you'll always have a tried and tested process to get you back up and running. So come and talk to our Getronics online services team and let us take the strain.
So we've explained at a high level the business challenges that are addressed by the service. Now let's look at them in a little more detail. Getronics recognise that customers implement DR solutions to satisfy many requirements: to protect business critical assets, to satisfy regulatory requirements, or to comply with contractual requirements of your own customers. We also recognise the need in the marketplace and the need of our existing customers, many of whom we already provide traditional disaster recovery solutions for, to provide a more flexible disaster recovery solution, one that does not rely on the purchase of equipment in a second location, or the use of a backup solution that you hope will restore successfully and in a timely fashion when needed. Getronics is also very aware that simply restoring the foundation infrastructure does not actually satisfy the overall business continuity requirement for line of business application recovery. So to address this, Getronics enhanced its existing disaster recovery offerings to include a significantly more flexible disaster recovery as a service offering. This enables a highly granular disaster recovery solution to be implemented, which can start from the protection of a single virtual machine right through to the protection of your entire environment. Individual service workloads can be added or removed through a standard service request, as can enterprise-grade service levels that Getronics offer, such as recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives, without the need for long and protracted contract negotiations on every change. In addition to this, we differentiate the service by considering the business process of disaster recovery invocation. We are able to work collaboratively with you to populate our own disaster recovery process tool through the use of standard and custom workflows, ensuring that should an invocation occur, the unique steps of each individual customer are defined, agreed, and available to all, ensuring that even during the challenging times of a disaster, the return to service is successful. As a standard portfolio offering, DR as a service requires minimal upfront and ongoing costs to begin protecting your business critical assets. There's no costly design and build phase, no requirement for the traditional one-to-one mapping of dormant physical servers in a dark data center. All that is typically required is the setup of replication from your current location to the Getronics data center through an appropriate secure network connection. Getronics provides the service in accredited and secure private data centers to ensure that your data is in safe hands. The as-a-service model creates a granular charging framework for the selection and the deselection of servers and applications which require to be protected. This ensures that only protected data is replicated, which means costs are minimized. As well as the invocation process we have touched upon previously, Getronics are also capable of providing a full line of business application recovery service, as well as simply the core infrastructure. This will clearly need a period of collaborative working to enable the Getronics application teams with the information they require for application recoveries. And finally, DR as a service is provided with an annual test included in the price to ensure a successful recovery can be accomplished. Testing can be done in a non-disruptive fashion, so you can be confident that successful recoveries can be made without impacting your end users. Reporting is available for this, therefore audit requirements can be satisfied with the testing. With these requirements met, you can significantly reduce the risk of revenue and productive time loss during a disaster. So what are the benefits to your company from the approach Getronics takes to disaster recovery? Disaster recovery as a service is designed to provide higher levels of flexibility and granularity when compared to a traditional disaster recovery solution. There's no requirement to purchase additional infrastructure, and it's possible to use a secure internet connection for replication. For this reason, the initial setup charges can be significantly reduced. When the service has been implemented, the ability to protect or stop protecting a specific workload is managed by a simple service request. All that is then required is for the data associated with that workload to be replicated to the Getronics data center, and once that's complete, the workload is protected. This avoids having to build new infrastructures and to go through lengthy contract changes to handle newly protected workloads. Similarly, if you wish to switch off the protection of a workload, you simply switch it off. Getronics will also work very closely with you to manage the initial migration of data. Depending on the volume of initial data, it may be that transferring it over the internet or a managed network is appropriate, or it may be that we actually transfer it via physical hardware straight from your data center location and seed that data into our data center. Getronics can provide all of these options and more as a fully managed service, thereby reducing the risk of transition to the disaster recovery as a service offering. So the disaster recovery as a service charging model is aligned directly to the services you're consuming. So for clarity, storage is charged on a one-to-one basis. Therefore, each gigabyte of data that in your location that you wish to be protected is charged for on a 1 gigabyte basis on our platform. There's a small setup fee for the replication enablement, with an ongoing charge for data replication. We charge a placeholder fee for the compute resources that are required, and the annual test is included in the charge. Given the experience of delivering multiple traditional disaster recovery services, we've seen savings of up to 30% when compared to those traditional disaster recovery solutions. So where does disaster recovery as a service fit within the overall Getronics portfolio of offerings, and how does this approach provide you with a benefit? Well, alongside the wider Getronics portfolio, we've developed a set of complementary offerings in our online services portfolio. Disaster recovery as a service is one of them. We made a very specific design decision to utilize a business process management suite to drive the orchestration and automation of these services, rather than perhaps an infrastructure-based tool. We also built each service on the same architectural platform, so as you move up the value stack, each service inherits the capabilities of its supporting services. This enables us to deliver an integrated set of service offerings and provides a roadmap of further innovative offerings for your consumption. DR as a service is an ideal starting point, enabling you to begin the journey to consumption-based services at low risk and low cost. You might then grow and start hosting production applications on the infrastructure as a service platform, start consuming our workflow integration platform service, add additional business functionality from our SaaS offerings, or serve your end users with our workspace as a service offering. In any case, the portfolio will continue to grow, offering you plenty of innovative choices. So to enable disaster recovery as a service, Getronics will first engage with you to understand the virtual environment that you wish to protect, including elements such as data volumes, networking, recovery point, and recovery time objectives. We'll then mutually develop a plan to enable that replication service, selecting the required resources to be protected and starting the replication. Changes to those protected resources can then easily be made through the standard service requests. An annual test is then scheduled to ensure that all workloads can successfully be recovered. So to give you a sense for what the service looks and feels like, let's run a short demonstration.
So now, let's get a feel for the service through the customer-facing portal. This will enable us to show protected workloads, demonstrate the levels of protection that they are receiving, and do 2 managed failovers. We'll conclude the demonstration with a non-disruptive isolated test. So to begin with, let's take a look at the customer-facing portal. In this example, we have 3 protected workloads, or virtual protection groups as they're called, each representing the service that they deliver. Here we have 2 database services and an email service. For each workload, you can see both the location of the source and the protected target. You can see real-time the service level that the workload is protected to, and you can see the overall status of protection. Now let's move into our first demonstration area, that of virtual protection groups and service profiles. Each protection group, which can contain 1 or more systems, can be assigned a specific set of priorities, recovery point objectives, and checkpoint history retentions using a service profile. For each group we look at, we can see a different set of profile settings in the configuration section, consisting of the following: a priority, which is used to determine the priority of transferring data from the protected site to the recovery site when more than one protection group is defined in the protected site; a target recovery point objective, with the maximum desired time in seconds between each automatic checkpoint being written to the recovery site; and journal history, the time for which all checkpoints are saved in the journal that can be used for point-in-time recoveries. So as we step into each protection group, you'll see that they differ based on the service profile that they have been assigned. In this example, we have a standard service profile, low priority, and an RPO of 360 minutes. In this example, it's a medium priority with a 60-minute RPO. And in the final one, we have a Enhanced Plus with an RPO of 5 minutes and a high priority. It's worth pointing out that although all groups show as protected and well within the recovery point objective times, both database service groups have amber warning showing. This is because, as part of the demonstration, we changed their service profile, and the journal history, which is set for the service profile, was not being met, as the original service profile required less journal data than the new one. So as time elapses, they will then generate that required journal history, and then they will return to showing as green. So on to the second demonstration, that of a live managed failover. This demo shows the process of performing a controlled failover of a protected system to the recovery site. You use a failover operation when you're able to shut down the source virtual machine and you want to simulate a natural disaster. This makes it a disruptive test, so we should be aware of that. We select a workload we want to fail over. We select live, not test, and then failover. We then confirm that that's the right workload, just to be sure. We select shutdown of the protected virtual machine as it is currently running. If this was a real disaster, you may not have that option. The checkpoint by default is the last taken, as you can see there. We're not auto-committing in this demonstration, but you could set an auto-commit time if you wanted. We select the failover button, and that is now going to power down the existing virtual machine and start up the new one in the second location. This will just take a few seconds to work its way through. It's doing this automatically for us. And as that failover occurs, the existing protected VM is shut down and the new one is started. After the virtual machines have been recovered in the recovery site, they are used as the protected machines for as long as the test lasts. So from this point forward, the recovered site machines are the protected machines. After you've done the testing on that, which may just be to connect to it or maybe to do UAT, you can select a rollback option, which shuts down those recovered systems and brings the original systems back online in their original state before they were shut down. So any changes made between the shutdown and the startup won't be replicated back. And if this was a real failover, however, you could select commit to actually then fail over those protected machines. So now for our third demonstration, a point-in-time managed failover. This demonstration will again show a controlled managed failover. However, this time, rather than taking the default checkpoint, we're actually going to specify an earlier point in time, allowing us to recover the environment to a specific point before potentially any corruption occurred through maybe a crash or for other reasons such as a virus. So again, we'll select the workload that we want to fail over, go live, select it here. But this time we'll actually go into the checkpoint option and make a specific manual selection of time. The service will be generating multiple checkpoints, which you'll see here, with short time periods between each one. And we can scroll through all of the available options and find the one which best aligns to the requirements, i.e. One in which we're comfortable that it's before the point of the issue. We can select that, and then we continue with the process as per the first demonstration, doing the live managed failover. You'll see now that that checkpoint date and time is as specified in the drop-down. Again, we'll sort of shut down that machine, we'll hit next, and we'll move into the failover process. And this time, as that machine fails over, it will be to the point in time that we were looking for. So now on to the fourth and final demonstration, that of a non-disruptive isolated test. This demonstration shows an isolated failover that recovers the protected systems in the recovery site in an isolated environment, a bubble so to speak, allowing a non-disruptive test recovery to be performed which verifies the recovery with no downtime of the protected systems. This time we choose test, not live, as our failover. And it's worth pointing out at this point as we go through that you can actually choose multiple groups should you wish. You can pick 1, 2 or more and in any combination that you desire to do testing on. This creates a very granular test strategy. So as we go forward, again we're just taking the default checkpoint for that particular protection group. We get the blue test failover option, and what this will now do is it will actually create a test group in an isolated network, which is what it's doing right now as we just watch the percentage bar increase. There we go. And when it's complete, the service allows the new system to be reported against for an audit perspective. There's a full reporting capability within the service. So we'll just let that complete to 100%. And what that's effectively doing is leaving the existing protected virtual machine running and creating a duplicate of that based on that point in time, which is now complete. So there is now a second protection group available running in an isolated network that you could connect to and do user acceptance testing on and report against, which is that result past tick box that you see there. Once you're ready to clean it up, if you hit the stop selected, it will actually clean up that installation of the virtual machine in the bubble and remove it. And I'll delete the temporary resource. It's just taking a few seconds to do that. At the point that concludes, there will be no further record of that resource operational. And that's it. So you've done a full test of the recovery of that group in an isolated network. And that overall concludes the demonstration.
So that is what the service looks and feels like. It's probably worth at this point calling out some of the considerations that are relevant to consuming that service. There are some technology constraints. Disaster recovery as a service is based around storage replication at the hypervisor layer, and that's currently restricted to the VMware hypervisor. Alternate hypervisors and physical non-x86 server requirements may still be required, of course, and these can be provided through a custom disaster recovery solution. Network access is clearly required, with WAN or VPN and the appropriate bandwidth required for the service levels. The greater the rate of change frequently means the greater the bandwidth, and that can have an impact on the RPO and the RTO. So overall, how can Getronics support you on this journey to protecting your business critical assets? The Getronics proposition is really all about bringing together the following capabilities into a seamless disaster recovery service for you. The consumption-based service offering, the enterprise-grade recovery time and recovery point objectives, the end-to-end capability of recovery, not just the infrastructure, but of course it can include the line of business application recovery as well. The secure data centers it's hosted in with their ISO 27001 accreditation and the secure networking to them, and a very clear focus on the process elements of the service as well as the infrastructure and applications through the use of our disaster recovery workflow management tool. It's putting all of these together for you in a fashion that fits your business. That is what differentiates Getronics disaster recovery services. So given these benefits that we've described today, the minimal upfront investment, the reduced ongoing costs, the enterprise service levels, security, and infrastructure, apps, and process all from one service provider, how might we move forward in starting to protect your business critical workloads? So there are two standard methods of engagement. Firstly, we can approach this from the perspective of defining or redefining your current DR processes, mapping them into the workflow, and then utilizing the disaster recovery as a service offering to protect the environment. Or, second option, looks to use the disaster recovery solution in a more standalone fashion with the provision of IT services the primary focus rather than the focus on process. Both of these approaches can take custom solutions into consideration, such as physical servers, on-site migrations, alternate hypervisors, for instance. Or alternatively, you're absolutely welcome to contact me directly, and I can begin the dialogue with you. So at this point, I'd like to conclude the presentation and take any questions that you may have, or some that may have been posted as we've gone through the slides. Thank you.
Okay, well firstly thanks very much everyone for the time taken to listen through the webinar. We've had a couple of interesting questions come through, so I'll just start working on answering those at the moment. If you have any other questions you'd like to ask, please just use the webinar facilities to raise them. So the first question that's come in is actually asking whether this failover process that we saw demonstrated was using SRM, which is the VMware Site Recovery Manager. It's not Site Recovery Manager that we actually use as part of the technology underpinning the service. The reason we've made a particular technical product decision is the granularity with which the failovers and the tests can be done. So it's not Site Recovery Manager. Another question that we've had coming in is around the differentiation of ourselves and our service versus other disaster recovery providers. And I think to answer that, really, what immediately sort of sets us apart from your more pure play DR as a service providers is our understanding, credibility in the process parts of the disaster recovery invocation. So we're able to provide that flexible infrastructure, as same as many of our competitors. But what we also spend a lot of time doing is capturing, documenting, and then sort of visualizing your end-to-end process, the invocation, the failover, failbacks, and the tests. And either by updating existing plans or in actually creating them from new. And we can also do the end-to-end management of invocations from an application, line of business application perspective as well. Really, and all of that combined gives you the confidence that when you invoke, we will actually successfully recover. Got some more questions as well just coming through. So a little bit around understanding the cost model is another question. It's probably more detailed than we want to go into at this point in time, going through all of it. But fundamentally, the way that the costing works is we map storage on a one-to-one basis. So wherever the source location is, if one or more, however many gigabytes of storage are in the source, however many we replicate to the platform to protect, we charge on a one-to-one basis. We also charge for the replication service, as well as a small placeholder for the compute within our data center. We also set up the service in the first instance to do the replication. And those are the elements that we charge on. If you were to add further workloads, or if you add further data to the service for various reasons, then it's just a monthly consumption model for each of those that's added or removed, depending on the volume. So it becomes completely consumption-based and granular to the individual VMs or protected groups. Another question we've got is, which customers are using the service today? So at the moment, within the online services, all of our customers that we are protecting across the two data centers are using the service to do the protection and to do the replication with the service, and we also use the same methodologies and same technologies for customer transitions. So if we're moving or migrating one of our customers from one data center to another, we use the same technology and same approach. So it's a proven way of doing business. Okay, another questions. So there's a question around physical servers as well as virtual, and is it possible to protect and deliver a consumption-based DR service for physical servers? Yes. So today, what we demonstrated was effectively our standard off-the-shelf portfolio offering. However, Real IT is considerably more complex than just being simply virtual. So we're absolutely able to offer disaster recovery as a service against different server architectures and different hypervisors. We would just need to sit down and work with you to understand those specific requirements and work the solution to fit that. But we absolutely could, and we're very keen to do so as well. Okay, we've got another couple of questions coming in as well. Do you have a minimum commit volume to start taking the service? No, not specifically. We can start from a very small footprint of particularly in the DR as a service, the virtual machines, and then work our way, increase and grow. So there's no specific minimum sort of size commit. Neither do we have any specific stipulations around the length of contract that you can take. Generally speaking, it makes sense to have an ongoing service for a period of time, just because of there is a little bit of effort required to set up the service in the first instance. So typically, the business case would look better if it's running over a period of time rather than maybe changing suppliers every few weeks or a few months. How much network bandwidth might I need? Does latency affect the service? So it's quite a difficult question to answer. As you saw from the demonstration, the service sort of generates live RPO figures, but to enable the RPO that you require for your business, there's a number of factors that you've got to take into consideration. Sort of the rate of change associated with the workload, the connectivity during sort of normal replication, but also connectivity for when the service is invoked. There are multiple ways of doing that and achieving the same goal. So what we would typically do from a networking perspective is really work closely with you in the solution phase to ensure that what we set up network-wise will fit, and that tends to be subtly different for each and every customer. Some more questions coming in. So is this a new service, and how many live customers are currently using it? So it's not a new service, or rather, how new is this service? So we introduced the service in the early part of this year, as specifically as DR as a service, but Getronics have been providing disaster recovery services for many years to many customers. And we currently have a handful of live customers currently using it as part of our online services portfolio. And I think we're just nearing the end of the time. What I will do is there's a couple more questions just come in. I'm going to actually capture all of the questions and then come back to each one of you individually on the questions via email if that's acceptable, and we can sort of continue the dialogue directly. So it's just gone 30 minutes after the start. So I'd like to thank everyone very much indeed for taking the time to join and stay on right till the end, and look forward to talking to you about some of your questions in the coming future. Thanks very much.